Now, 30 years after they debuted with the single The Drowners, rock band Suede are chasing their fourth #1 album. They were original members of the Britpop movement alongside Oasis, Blur and Pulp, but you probably knew that already. Let's take a listen to their latest track. I'm very pleased to say frontman Brett Anderson joins me now live from West London. Very good morning to you. Really nice to talk to you this morning. So tell us a little bit about this album. I read that you wanted to go back to basics for it. So what exactly does that mean?
I think if you stick around long enough, you get more and more sophisticated. And then there's a point where you just want to kind of get back to the energy and the excitement of what it's like when you're first in a band. And that's this record, really. It's a kind of like, we've called it our punk record. It's not a punk record. It's sort of our version of punk. It's kind of got all the messy bits and all the energy and the kind of lack of respect that punk has, I suppose. But it's a kind of like, it's a sort of live, raw sounding record, quite primal in places, And it's just an attempt to kind of like make a great rock record,
But how do you go about that? How do you strip out sophistication? I know that you work with the same producer, I think, as you did on your first single. Yeah. But how do you get that feeling of a new beginning when you've been doing it for years? Yeah,
that's hard, actually. I mean, you've got to really feel it. You've got to really... I think playing live a lot really helps. We play live a lot, and it's a very sort of like visceral, primal experience. We did a few things. We played a couple of gigs under an assumed name, the name Crash Kid, to almost like start again with, the idea was that we were going to go into a little tiny venue and play to people that didn't know we were playing and stuff like that. And you've got to kind of like slightly engineer these things. But yeah, it's hard. You've got to feel it though. I think you've got to feel it. You've got to, if you're excited about your music, then it'll come through,
How did that go though? Did everyone just go, hang on, that's Suede?
Well, the cat got out of the bag. Yeah, it was actually we did it in the Moth Club in Hackney and the Deaf Institute in Manchester, and they were kind of mad little gigs because the fans actually ended up finding out it was us and turning up. But the idea was to do it in front of one man and his dog. We didn't get around to that.
I don't think that's ever going to happen again to you, let's face it. And you've talked about this being a loud, noisy, nasty rock record, but you've said it's got the lyrical vulnerability that comes with being an older man.
Yeah.
And some people might be surprised that you think of yourself as being more vulnerable as you get older. Some people would say, surely you just get more self-assured, more confident with experience.
Well, I don't know about everyone else. I kind of only speak for myself, but I don't find... I think there's a sort of assumption that as people's lives get more comfortable, in one sense, that they get more comfortable as people. And in one sense, I'm kind of 55, I have a family I love, and I'm relatively comfortable in that sense. But I think there's kind of creeping anxiety that you only have as a middle-aged person, kind of like worries about the fragility of family, worries about mortality, these kind of things. And I sort of wanted to reflect that. So I wanted it to be a rock record, but not from the perspective of a 25-year-old man, very much from the perspective of a 55-year-old man. I thought that was quite an interesting kind of sort of duality. It hasn't got the arrogance of youth. There's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of vulnerability in there.
And what about vulnerability about your music as well? Does it get more nerve-wracking putting music out there when so much of the industry is geared towards younger people? Do you lose confidence in that area at all?
Well, no. I mean, we've got quite a lovely sort of healthy fan base that always look after us, which is kind of amazing. Yeah, I mean, you're always going to be competing against people, and we're not in the mainstream anymore. But that can be a kind of freedom in a way. I think when we were in the mainstream, you can end up becoming self-parody because you're kind of trying to chase a formula. And being free of the mainstream, being away from the mainstream, allows you quite a lot of creative kind of, I don't know, you can experiment a bit more. The last album and the album before were very, very experimental records. There was lots of kind of like found sounds and field recordings and kind of odd moments on those records, which I don't think we would have ever done if we'd have released them in the 90s. We wouldn't have that artistic freedom. So you have to look at every situation and assess it and sort of look at the good things about it and use those as opportunities, I think.
And are you enjoying yourself? Are you pleased with it? Have you been enjoying gigging?
Of course. I mean, I love it more and more as I get older, actually. It's a strange thing. The older I get, the more I love playing live. You can use your experience. If you can stay relatively fit and stick around long enough, you can kind of use your experience. You know, when you first go on stage, it's this sort of weird kind of very blurry experience, and you don't really know what's going on. And then,
sorry, I'm going to cut in because we're just completely running out of time. We've only got a matter of seconds left, and we keep talking about your age, but I should point out I'm still a year older than you, so it's all good. Brett Anderson, really good to talk to you. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Thank you.